get juicy. Dr. Karyn Gordon is here. She's going to save you from almost having an affair. So this is the sort of situation that we're probably seeing more and more these days.
So common.
People are connecting. They're connecting online. They're connecting digitally. And it's a lot easier to do that in your private space and to reach out to an old fling, you know, via Facebook, or to talk to people via direct message on Twitter without getting caught. But you do run the risk of almost getting into an affair.
Yes, and we're talking about almost, because we're not talking about people who are having an affair. I'm talking about this gray zone.
Yeah.
This gray zone that is so prevalent, it is so common, and literally all I had to do in terms of prepping for this show was thinking about conversations I have had with friends and colleagues in the last 2 weeks. That's it.
The 2 weeks?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you. I know, it's kind of my nature of my job too. People tend to tell me this kind of stuff.
Right.
But I'm telling you, it is so interesting of how common it is.
Yeah.
And one of the things I want to really emphasize is that we cannot control what happens to us or if somebody reaches out to us, but we can control how we respond. Okay, and so there's a huge difference with that, which is very important. And the other thing is that when people kind of find themselves in this kind of gray zone, it really is a sign that there is a void in their current relationship.
And that's always the situation? You can't just be looking for something exciting and titillating and everything's fine in your relationship?
Not when somebody is seeking it, I would say no. Because if the relationship is really satisfying, then they're not going to be looking at it. Now, if somebody is reaching out to me, I might have a satisfying relationship. I can't control if somebody does that to me, but I certainly can control how I'm going to respond. And so this is why we're calling it almost an affair. And this is what I call the danger zone.
So what is the danger zone? What are the elements that, how do you name it an affair or an almost affair?
Well, the affair would be, obviously, if it's going to be physical, for sure. But this is what we would actually call almost like an emotional affair.
Right.
Where there's maybe nothing physical, but I'm telling you, it is such a slippery slope, and it can go from innocent to dangerous really fast. And so that's why I feel it's really important that we talk about it.
I remember on the show before we talked about the person sort of fulfilling that role that your mate would traditionally fill. And when you start going down that road, there is some kind of an emotional connection happening there.
And
or you're trying to hide it. If you're trying to hide it from your spouse, that's something suspect.
It is, and you know, the other thing about emotional affairs too, this is much more popular with women, right? And especially if we're, so if we're not getting that emotional connection from our husband, all of a sudden we're going to be putting ourselves in a vulnerable place. So tip number one is it's really, really important to set your emotional and physical boundaries. Very, very important. A lot of people, when we talk about this at our center, I mean, we do 50% of our counseling at our center is with couples, and this comes up all the time. So physical, like when I think about a boundary is like if I've got a whole bunch of land, then it's like, here's like the fence. It's going to kind of separate between my property and your property, right? So like a nice, so you want in a relationship, you want also having a boundary. So you kind of know what's in our zone and what's actually inappropriate. So that's what we call about boundaries in kind of counseling or psychology language, okay? So in a physical boundary, it's much easier. It's like, you know, there's no kissing somebody, there's no having sex with somebody else. Like, it's kind of like pretty easy, right? Emotionally, it's a little bit more tricky, and that's why it's actually so gray. Okay, so here are a couple of boundaries that Brent and I, we've been married for almost 15 years. Here are a couple of our emotional boundaries that we had actually set when we actually first got married. Number one is that we both have, I have guy friends, he's got friends that are female. So rule number one, boundary number one is that I would always, and I mean always, esteem him when I'm talking to that friend. So if there's any conflict, any frustration, any problems, I would not be talking to my male friends about that.
That makes sense.
Right, that is an emotional boundary. I'd be talking to either him or my girlfriends, okay? That's a really, really important one. And the other thing is that I would only have that friendship if he's okay with it. Okay, so I'm always making sure that he is my top priority, and he kind of is going to kind of dictate that. So that's what I would call an emotional boundary. The other one is that if somebody actually reached out to me, whether it's email, Twitter, whatever, I'm going to actually let him know about that. If I feel like it's like it's kind of too intimate. Okay.
So would you say, at the end of the day, we always know when things are going sideways? I mean, you can sort of get a sense of it, because I think some people make the excuse of, oh, no, but that's just a friend. But I think that intuitively you know when that person wants to be more than a friend.
You know what? I think you're very intuitive, though. I think for you, you'd probably know. And honestly, Trace, I think there's so many. I think about some of the clients I have, they are like so blind, like, no, she's just being nice.
Really?
Oh, yes.
And they have no idea?
Yes, yes.
Really? Yes. And the tops are getting lower and lower.
You know what, they're like, she's just being nice. She's just